The information that you'll hear in this video is unlike anything that is out there, really. And I think you'll find this extremely valuable. So again, please stick around until the end. Hello and welcome to Hope for Dystonia. My name is Shmuel and I am the creator of Hope for Dystonia. You may have heard me introduce myself in other videos as Federico. Both are names that I carry and I'm simply choosing to reclaim my Hebrew name. So Shmuel. I am the creator of Hope for Dystonia, the single most comprehensive, empowering, and transformative dystonia program out there. I created Hope for Dystonia because for over 12 years I had a hard time speaking, chewing, and walking. And I got my life back because I was able to develop and implement this method. I have shared this method with others for over 6 years as of the filming of this video in 2025. And I'm excited to tell you that after these 6 years working one-on-one with people, I am now launching the Hope for Dystonia Self-Healers Academy. It's going to be a home for people who are on a journey of recovery, a community that is supportive, a community that is motivating, and a home where you can find life-changing information that can make all the difference in your recovery journey. So if you click on the link in the description below, you'll be guided to the video on the 8 steps of the Hope for Dystonia recovery roadmap. Life-changing information that tells you the basics of the method. And from there, you'll be able to check out the Hope for Dystonia Self-Healers Academy and see if it's a right fit for you. We would love to have you. So today, we are going to be talking about really fundamental things about dystonia. The information that you'll hear in this video is unlike anything that is out there, really. And I think you'll find this extremely valuable. So again, please stick around until the end. So what are the causes of dystonia? Well, if you just do some Googling, you'll be told that it's really a bit of a mystery and nobody really knows, and there are so many different kinds of dystonia that it's difficult to generalize, and even when we zero in on specific kinds, there's very little that we can actually figure out. Well, that is in part true, right? There is a lot of complexity, but I will tell you what I have understood about my own story and the countless clients that I have worked with over the last 6 years. Dystonia is an emergent phenomenon. What is an emergent phenomenon? It's like a storm, right? So what causes a storm? Is it the water? Is it the wind? Is it the electricity? The answer is none of them and all of them, right? The storm is what happens when all of these different factors and more come together. And the system, the atmospheric system where the storm takes place, is forming. The system organizes itself as best as it can based on the convergence of all of these causal cofactors, right? So dystonia is the same. It's the body's best attempt to organize itself based on the inputs that it is exposed to. What are these inputs? Well, there are genetic factors, for sure, that predispose us to this or that form of dystonia. There are often repetitive actions, like playing an instrument in not exactly the right way, or, just repeating anything, whether it is a correct movement or not, and strengthening those pathways. There is toxicity from heavy metals. There are viruses that have been shown to be implicated. There are other factors that are often less talked about. And these are the ones that I think are crucial and often overlooked. And they are the ones that can make a massive difference because they can empower us to actually restructure the fundamental softwares in our nervous system once we recognize them. So I am talking about the causes of dystonia that have to do with trauma. And when people hear the word trauma, they think about, one big event that happens and kind of knocks us off of our feet. Sometimes there's big trauma like that, but often for people with dystonia, what really happens is developmental trauma. Now, when people hear developmental trauma, at first, the reaction is, well, I had a great childhood. I didn't have any problems. My parents were awesome and they did their best. I am sure that that is true for a lot of us. But for many of us, once we dig a little bit deeper, we recognize that, yes, our parents did do the very best that they could, and they are not to blame. However, our parents themselves did not receive some of the things that would have helped them develop resilient and healthy nervous systems. And so they weren't able to provide those things for us. And so when we don't have enough of a consistent experience of safety, of protection, of attunement, right? Of parents that are curious about our experience and what's going on for us, when we don't feel seen and understood, when we don't feel valued, when we're not encouraged to be who and what we are, when we don't have models that show us how to soothe our nervous system and move from states of sympathetic overdrive and excessive engagement in the nervous system to soothing and parasympathetic relaxation, or how to come out of freeze. When we don't have all of this consistently growing up, we don't develop the softwares in our nervous systems that allow us to really face life with resiliency, right? We don't develop the ability to deal with difficulties and come back to regulation. And here is the key sentence that I would like you to retain about dystonia. Dystonia is what happens when we learn that in order to meet our fundamental psychological needs for safety, protection, and self-esteem, we learn that we have to live outside of our window of regulation, right? So dystonia is what happens, or one of the things that can happen, to be more precise, when we learn that in order to feel safe, for example, we need to stay constantly alert. And so rather than being able to be alert at times and relax, we learn that we have to stay stuck in a state of excessive alertness. Dystonia is one of the things that can happen when we learn, for example, that in order to be good, in order to have self-esteem, in order to be recognized as good and valuable and worthy of love, we have to stress ourselves out and accomplish more than our bodies would allow us to normally. And so we drive ourselves crazy worrying about this and that thing, constantly trying to accomplish more, to control this and that thing, and we stay stuck in a state of dysregulation. So I hope this makes sense. We learn that in order to meet our fundamental psychological needs for safety, connection with others, and self-esteem, we need to stay outside of that window of regulation, whether it's excessive sympathetic engagement or freeze, right? Staying frozen in a state of fear and depression and making ourselves small. Now, I said this is one of the things that can happen. Dystonia is one of the things that can happen when when we face this type of inputs growing up. The reason I said this is that, as I mentioned earlier, there are several factors that can come together in order to produce dystonia. And the truth is that there are plenty of people with developmental trauma or people that didn't receive exactly what they needed growing up in order to develop resilient nervous systems that don't develop dystonia. Maybe they develop other things. So again, why do we develop dystonia and not something else? Well, some of the factors that I mentioned earlier apply, but another one that is really important and present in lots of people with cervical dystonia, with oromandibular dystonia, facial dystonia, generalized dystonia, is anatomical imbalances, specifically at the level of the occlusion and the TMJ. I have plenty of other videos on this topic on hopefordystonia.com. You'll find plenty of information. And really, what happens there is that when this chronic pattern of tension meets a jaw that is imbalanced, where the condyle, the end of the jaw bones, when one of the condyles presses more against one set of cranial nerves on one side than the other, then that set of cranial nerves becomes tense and overstimulated. And that is one of the ways that we can tell our brains, essentially, that not only do they have to remain tense moment to moment to moment, but in fact, they have to tense more on one side than the other. And so what would be a pattern of symmetrical tension can become a pattern of cervical dystonia. So again, these are my observations. They are supported by research, but no one quite puts them in this way. And I think that it is crucial that we frame dystonia in this way as the best attempt that the brain can create to keep us safe and in one piece. Why? Because it is what empowers us, right? It tells us that the brain and the body in general, they're not betraying us, right? They are in fact trying to help us survive. And when we provide different inputs, right, different ingredients in the cake, different causal cofactors in the storm, when we do that, we can help the nervous system shift and say, okay, I've used this pattern up until now. Now, what do I need in order to flirt and eventually learn a new pattern? One that is more symmetrical, one that helps me stay regulated moment to moment, one that helps me have this breathing rhythm of sympathetic engagement and parasympathetic relaxation. And this is what the Hope for Dystonia method is all about, right? Looking at all the causal cofactors, all the different angles that need to be taken into consideration to help the body say, all right, I'm going to try this new pattern instead of the old one. And in the Self-Healers Academy, the way I've built things is that the journey is a journey through different stages of neuroplasticity, of learning for the brain, right? So we begin by just flirting, right? We just try something on, right? A new pattern that is unfamiliar, that is a little more symmetrical, but we're only able to have a little taste of it, and then our brain wants to go back to the old pattern, right? Once we practice that enough and we give our brain the conditions that it needs in order to really trust that it can relax in the new pattern, we get into deepening, right? So flirting, deepening. And as we deepen, we get to practice, right? And we get to make the new pattern more and more available, more and more the default. And the more we do that, the more we can move towards embodiment. And that is the third stage of neuroplasticity. When the new pattern becomes really the default from which we live. And so this gives you an idea of what we can do to move from a dysfunctional pattern to one that supports us more. Now I want to tell you about what these conditions are. What is it that we actually have to do? So again, if you click on the link in the description below, you'll be taken to the video on the 8 steps of the recovery roadmap. In that video, I go through all of this into much greater detail. But for now, what I want you to kind of retain from what I'm saying today is the following. What we need to do is we need to understand what pattern the body has learned, right? So what are the hypertonic pathways? What are the nerves that we are overusing, that we are firing too much? And what are the hypotonic pathways? Which ones are we not using enough? That is the first step to clarity. And in the Self-Healers Academy, there is plenty of information and plenty of videos that are dedicated to empowering you to actually map this out for yourself, right? And once we understand exactly, okay, I'm overusing this branch of the 5th cranial nerve in the jaw, for example. And so I'm chewing harder here, I am tightening over here, and I'm not using the corresponding branch of the 5th cranial nerve on the other side. When I figure this out, I know that I need to come back to this other hypotonic branch, and I need to try to wake it up. Since we're talking about the 5th cranial nerve, one of the ways that I can do that is taking something like a chewing gum or a popsicle stick and gnaw on it, trying to activate that specific branch of the 5th cranial nerve and letting go of the one that I normally overuse, right? There's plenty more to this. And again, in other videos and in the course, this is broken down in lots of detail. But you get the point. We need to understand what's happening so that we then can begin to say, all right, let me wake up the things that I have forgotten, and let me learn to let go of what I'm overusing. I then want to induce neuroplasticity in a number of ways, with repetition, with novelty, with challenge. And there are a number of things that, that we can look at, and you'll find videos that I have on mushrooms, for example, and a lot more. So in addition to this, we need to understand, okay, I am rewiring specific patterns that I have learned, but really these specific patterns emerge in a broader context, right? And that is where the trauma comes in, where the chronic dysregulation comes in. And so with the right kind of meditation and self-compassion work, we can really zoom in on the wounds that we carry and very specifically give our little ones that live within us, our inner children, what they need in order to try a different software on, right? So if I never got to develop self-esteem, and I drive myself crazy all day, every day, trying to prove that I am good enough, what is it like as an adult to have experiences that help me feel that I am good enough no matter what? Again, not just saying this, because plenty of us can understand this, but actually feeling it in our bones in a way that allows everything in our bodies to let go and relax and soften. We need to shift the underlying softwares that lead us to chronic dysregulation. This is what really makes healing possible. We can perform as many exercises as we want, trying to rewire something with the neck. If there is a pattern of chronic dysregulation, the neck isn't going to really be able to shift its pattern. I'm giving the neck as an example, of course, but this goes for any muscle that is involved in a dystonic pattern. So we need to shift this fundamental software. If there is something anatomical that is leading the brain to learn that one side is more important than the other, then we need to lead the work of rebalancing this anatomical input. And again, I have plenty of videos and information on this channel, and even more in the course on the TMJ, right? And how to lead the work of balancing the TMJs from a place of sovereignty, really understanding what the nervous system is asking of us, rather than submitting ourselves to some sort of idea that a practitioner may have of where they think our jaw should end up. And that sovereignty makes all the difference. And once we rebalance those things, if they apply to us, then a massive input that leads to imbalance is removed. And these things make healing so much more easeful and quicker. Now, we talked about viruses and toxicity and heavy metals. There too, there are things that we can do gently with foods in order to help the body get rid of what doesn't serve and giving it everything that it does need in order to repair what needs to be repaired and really create all the new connections that need to be created for that process of neuroplasticity to happen. In the future, I'll film some videos on that topic. There is, again, more on this on hopefordystonia.com and in the course. So I think that's enough for today. That's plenty of information already. I hope that you can see the thread here, right? We need to be able to feel what we're doing right now, what the current dystonic pattern is, in order to be able to try something new. And we need to be able to allow this shift to happen at every level. Each one of the causal cofactors needs its own attention, right? So if you feel called to heal in this way, if you feel called to be in a community that is supportive and loving, if you want access to coaching and information that can make all the difference in your recovery journey, we would love to have you. So please check out the link in the description below. Check out hopefordystonia.com. You can try the Self-Healers Academy for 24 hours and get your money back if you're not happy. I am confident that you'll feel at home. I thank you for your attention and I look forward to seeing you soon. Much love.